Good afternoon, everyone. It's after 4 o'clock, so if we could please, let's call to order the Legal Committee meeting. Today is Thursday, May 28th, 2020, and it's 4 o'clock p.m. If we could have a roll call, please. Here.
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 I understand Councilor Foster may be joining us on GoToMeeting, so we have a quorum, so we'll go ahead. Hope he gets on pretty soon. Okay. Thank you. Our agenda is pretty lengthy today. We have a lot of work to get to, so could I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you. A second? Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. We will go in order of the agenda. We also have the minutes from the April 23rd, 2020 Legal Committee meeting. Are there any corrections or additions to those minutes? Hearing none, they'll stand as approved. Approved as written, sorry. Which is the proper way to do things, folks. Does not require a motion for minutes. Anyway, just saying. Okay, so let's go ahead and get to our items. Our first regular item is one Roswell Air Center agreement. Mark, are you?
Yep, I'll be doing that, and I'll go over the terms and conditions, but I've brought in the president of the company, Isaac Sheets, to talk about the expansion of the hangar and what that translates to in jobs.
Okay, great.
So currently, they have an existing land lease with us, with a building on that land lease, and they're going to extend that land lease an additional 6,000 or 7,000 square feet, going from 12,000 to 19,000. So we're doing a new lease on that footprint, a new term, July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2050. And with that, they'll be able to build a hangar. And I'm going to let Isaac come over here and tell him about the project and the timeline of that project and what this will enable his company to grow into.
That's great. Yes, please, if you would go to the microphone. Welcome to our Legal Committee meeting.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me.
Sure.
Well, our timeline, what we're going to be doing with this hangar is it's going to expand our capabilities for providing service and jobs out there. We just were approved on the 15th or the 17th for JTIP to hire another 16
good.
people.
Good.
So we just got approved for that program. We're actually looking
How
forward.
many? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
We were approved for 10 mechanics and 6 chief inspectors, so a total of 16 employees. Realistically, we're probably looking at an additional 25 employees, but we wanted to start small. We'll be sending out the approval to the engineering department once we get your blessing to get the steel designed. It's about a 5-week process for that, then 5 weeks after that for the delivery of the steel. We've already got our custom construction is going to be doing the work, and what this addition will do is it'll allow us to pull a complete A320 Airbus or 737 Next Gen into the hangar to complete service, return to service work. That'll be in addition to our already AFRA accreditation for reclamation that we offer at the moment. Also, we are going to be getting our FAA 145 certification as well with this hangar extension. So we look forward to bringing more work into here. We're also put a letter of intent in for an additional 6 acres to create a new scrap pad at the airport as well. So we'll be probably back to visit with you guys on that as well. We're getting all the monies together for both those projects at the same time. So realistically, we're looking at the end of August to have the the certificate of occupancy on the hangar addition, and by the end of the year, fourth quarter, having the scrap pad also developed at the hangar. That way we can be a one-stop shop everywhere from reclamation, parking, storage, return to service, and completely scrapping and removing the aircraft from the airport. So we should be creating quite a bit of job, I hope. Quite a bit of jobs. Any questions?
That sounds great. These, I'm assuming, are not mediocre paying jobs. They pay
I
decent?
believe they're averaging $22. We hired our first person this week through the JTIP program. He's starting at $25 an hour. Realistically, it's going to be well over the average of $22. The jobs actually won't start kicking in until we get closer to completing the hangar, but we are taking applications now for some seasoned certified A&P mechanics and chief
good.
inspectors. But we look forward to, there's a lot of aircraft parked out there, a lot of opportunity. So we were in the process of creating a component repair shop, but once this COVID hit, we switched gears from creating a back shop to creating a service. So we decided to go ahead and do the expansion on the hangar so we could provide these services. We do still, the first quarter of next year, want to do a component shop. So as we do service on aircraft, if an actuator or light or something needs to be repaired or overhauled, we'll be able to bring it right to our warehouse, which we just purchased a warehouse from Krebs, Christmas by Krebs. We just purchased a 150,000 square foot warehouse from them. We closed on March 10th on that. So we are doing quite a bit of expansion and growing here in this town. And we're really excited about it, about everything, our future
Great.
here.
Terrific.
So,
Do you live here?
yes, I have actually moved here. I'm originally from Florida. Then I've been in Tucson working a lot out there when I started the business, and always had a relationship here with Birdman Air. So that's how I've got my feet wet here, and I'll always love the area, but we have closed Tucson down. We still have a footprint at Marana, at Pinal Air Park. We do business there as well. But I have moved here, and this is our headquarters now. So we'll be able to keep all the monies that we make here in town, and that's another thing that we're looking forward to doing.
Welcome to Roswell.
Well, thank you.
Committee have any questions or comments? Yes. Go, Councilor Peterson.
How much does this hangar going to cost you?
The hangar, with the construction and the steel, it's coming out to $1.2 million. I paid cash for the first 12,500 square feet. I do have a balance of roughly 200,000, so we're getting a loan for about 1.6, and that will assume the balance that we have on the hangar, and that gives us enough money to do the crush pad. So we'll be able to do both of those projects with this money. So about 1.6
It's a lot of
is what
money.
we're investing into this project.
Well, that, you know, telling us the cost, it makes more sense, with the 30-year lease.
Yeah.
I-
Yeah, well, I've already got 1.5 in the first 12,500 square feet, and we paid 1.2 when we borrowed 3. And since then, we've paid it down to about 2. So we've got a lot of our own money into it, and I appreciate the long lease. We plan on being here a long time.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Councilor Perry?
Yes, ma'am. Has Counselor Foster joined us yet?
I'm sorry, I just got a note from our city clerk that he is not going to be joining us.
Okay.
So he's absent, but with the three of us, we still have a
Okay.
quorum, so.
Just a couple of questions. How long have you been here in Roswell with your company?
I started this company in 2016, but prior to that, I was with the company Fosco. I was with them 6 years, so we had always been here working, purchasing planes from Birdman Air, so I was familiar with the area then. We started working here in 2015, buying a few airplanes. I've been here since 2016. That's when we leased the Christmas by Krebs warehouse, and that's when we started the construction on the original hangar. It just went way over budget. This addition was actually supposed to have been done in the original project, but the original project was quoted at 1.5, or actually 1.2 for the whole project. We hit 1.5 million at the 12,500 square foot mark, so I had to stop the project and just seal up, put a false wall up with a roll-up door where the hangar door was supposed to go. So it's much shorter than it was supposed to be, but now it took us a little while, we purchased this warehouse so we can just get a good foundation here, and now we're focused on completing the warehouse, or the hangar.
I think the rest of my questions are going to be for staff, so I can
Okay.
hold off if there's any other questions.
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay. so
Okay, go
if I
ahead.
could- Yeah.
Thank you.
Do we, I don't see a map of the entire facility, so for me to get a view as to where this really is, do we have one?
We were supposed to. You don't have
Oh, the full board map.
Yeah, if we're able to have that at our meetings, that'll help me a whole lot, at least for, it's just been a while since I've got to get back, I got to get all the rest off of me to
No, I
remember
think
where
it
a lot of this
helps
stuff is.
all of us.
So
Again, we'd like to
without
have
the
a
map,
map
if I
every
could get some understanding of where this is on the airfield.
Do you know where the chalet building is, the big hangar that has kind of a patio on the side of it?
Yeah,
Two-story patio?
That's where that's been utilized for other functions as well.
Yeah,
in the
that's where we
past.
have the Navy go in, and
Okay.
Boeing and Mitsubishi.
Okay.
So it's the hangar that's
Is that the
next
hangar
to
that
it.
where we had McCain and Palin and all that? Well, okay, all right, yes, sir.
I don't know.
Okay,
I don't.
okay. So that's the hangar that we're discussing, and now so this is the land just right there next to it.
Right,
then.
so it's just bumping out forward. So it's an existing building, 12,500 feet, so it's just being expanded forward into the ramp area so a plane can be brought into it and the door can be closed.
Okay, I'm just trying to get a really good understanding, okay. Okay, I
Any-
think that's
Okay.
all the questions I'll have.
Thank you. Counselor Peterson, anything? I have one question, and this is for staff, and please forgive me, I feel that I have to ask this question. Considering the activity that this is going to create at the Air Center, which is fantastic, I'm not opposed to that. I just think there's going to be more usage of everything around them. Is the CPI of 3% enough?
For a land lease? I would say so. We don't have any upkeep. I mean, their building literally sits on the
Right.
footprint, so there's no upkeep on our side as far as maintenance of the square footage. And they pay improvement tax to the county on it because they own the
Right.
improvement. So I would say 3% is, or whatever actual CPI is, like I said, we don't have any insurance cost to the land. We don't have any tax costs. We don't have any upkeep cost. So,
But I'm thinking of the surrounding usage, the runways, the taxiways.
Yeah, I agree.
so we get compensated obviously when they land. So if they're driving new business, we don't get that back from land leases. We get that from the actual activity of landing
Okay, I
fees,
hadn't
fuel
thought about
flow, storage fees.
Okay. Yes.
Madam Chair, if I could, just a couple of other questions. What does the land around it, where planes would drive up to it, and all those areas, how is that looking right now? I know we've had situations in the past where we've had to. I remember when Jensen was with the one company, and there was some severe necessity for some things to be taken care of outside of the building. But they're in that area. How does our portion of the facility outside of there look?
I would say ours is in good shape. Isaac?
Okay. Okay. Now, I couldn't remember how long it had been since that had been done in that area.
If I may, that area was done in front of the hangar 2 years ago, so it's fresh asphalt. And then also the $3 million grant that we just got notification of from our 2020 MAP grant, that will complete the asphalt on that side of the airport. So it will all be new asphalt over there. And then on the land side, of that hangar. The FAA building is right behind them, so it's all a pretty decent area. It's clean, there's nothing dilapidated, mostly empty fields on that side, other than the FAA building.
Okay.
Go
I think
ahead.
just one or two other little things from me. Number one, I guess a question for you, and I guess come to the microphone just to give it real quickly so everyone can hear it, and it's on public record, but what is your current employment there?
Currently, we have 24 employees, 22 of them are here in Roswell, right at the moment. So over the next 6 months, we'll be hiring 16 more.
Okay.
And I think that's a very low number, honestly, but that's where we're going to start anyway.
Okay.
That's something I feel comfortable with. And then, like I said, next year, we plan on a good 25 more for our component repair shop that we plan on starting as well inside our warehouse.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so.
Okay, my last question for staff. I know for me, when we've got just, when we are just reapproving the continuance for folks that are there, I don't need to see the whole agreement. When it's new, I sort of like to know some information. So is there anything different on the other 10 pages than from all the other contracts? Is there anything that is different about this contractually from others that we have that is on a uniform system?
No, it's pretty much boilerplate except for the terms. So
Okay.
everything else is boilerplate.
Indemnification and everything is the same with the rest. Okay, all right. That exhausts my questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Staff? Okay, hearing none, this would go to the consent agenda for the, June, golly, council meeting. Do I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we send to the consent agenda of the regular June meeting of the full City Council for the approval of the lease agreement for the area of land consisting of 19,000 square feet, more or less, located between Hangar 1532 and Hangar 1533, the Roswell Air Center, identified on a plat attached as Exhibit A, with FIS, the FIS Company Incorporate, subject to all of the terms and conditions of the lease.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to send this to full City Council on the consent agenda for the June meeting. Do I have any further discussion? All those in favor then, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Looking forward to seeing what we have come out there.
Great.
Let us know.
Thank you. Okay, our second regular item this afternoon is the resolution authorizing the mayor to accept funding assistance from the FAA on behalf of the city. Scott, that's yours.
That's mine. Afternoon,
Please.
councilors, chair. This resolution and the one coming after it are both housekeeping items that we do every year to authorize, this one to authorize the mayor to accept FAA grants. As you guys know, we're not doing just one anymore per year, we're doing multiple, so we expect multiples again for the FY21. It's pretty much boilerplate, same as last year and the year before, with just the dates changed. So I stand for your questions.
Okay, thank you. The resolution's in front of us. Do we have any questions or comments on it? This too could go to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Yeah, this is just something has to be done. It's just a
Procedural.
house cleaning procedure. I make a motion that we send, put on the consent agenda of the next June full City Council meeting for the approval of the resolution authorizing the mayor to accept funding assistance from the Federal Aviation Administration on behalf of the city of Roswell.
We have a motion and a second to put this resolution on the consent agenda for the June council meeting with a recommendation to approve.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. That'll be on the consent agenda. Scott, the item 4 is very similar.
Affirmative. Item 4 is basically the same thing, slightly different wording, but this is the one that the state requires for the city manager to accept state grants. Normally, when you get the FAA grants, you have a portion that the state pays of the matching, and that's normally what this is for, but it would also cover any state-only grants for state-only projects.
Thank you. Did anybody else catch it? Did you catch it?
No.
You still have the words International Air Center
Oh,
in
did I miss
this.
it? Okay,
Yeah.
we can fix that.
Sure do.
Okay. I was wondering what you caught, but I'm
Yeah.
glad you're there.
It's in there twice, Scott. It's in the title and it's in the first
Okay.
whereas. Just needs to scratch that.
Did you see that it actually officially changed now? As of last Friday? It's out there for the world to see.
What is?
Air Center.
Oh,
The
yes.
International is now gone.
Yes. I did, actually, to my chagrin.
I was
Or
going to
whatever.
say, out of all the folks to catch it, it would be
It would be me.
Judy Stubbs. Okay.
Okay. Like we said, this resolution is similar, just authorizing the city manager. Do I have a motion?
I will make a motion that we send to the consent agenda the next full city council meeting in June. Recommendation for approval of the resolution authorizing the city manager to apply for, accept, and execute grant agreements for funding assistance from the State of New Mexico Aviation Division on behalf of the city of Roswell for project development at the Roswell Air Center.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to send this resolution to full council with a recommendation to approve, but it'll go on the consent agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. We'll see this in June. Okay. Thank you. Sorry you got to stick around, right? Item number 4 is the resolution on special event parking policies. Do we have someone from the Public Affairs?
Juanita?
Yes,
Yep,
we
there she
do.
is.
You're fine. Ms. Jennings, this comes from you. Would you like to give us some explanation?
Sure. So this was a project that we had been working on prior to COVID to align and to be uniform and consistent with other facilities within the city. So for example, the convention center, additional parking has fees currently for RVs overnight. We had an incident with a special event that happened at Cielo Grande where other people were charging for parking on our property, making money that was not part of the organization. So this really just aligns with our city ordinance and our code to have it uniform and really kind of tell individuals you cannot do that, basically. And so we were working on it. We've put it together. We want it to be uniform and consistent across all events throughout the city, so that some aren't treated one way and others are treated a different way. The resolution that's in here would also be adopted for the convention center parking lot, again, to be uniform, and then the policy just accompanies it in accordance with our current special event policy.
So let me ask, privilege here. Are you just referring to this parking lot
No,
across the street?
no, all of our parking that would be used for special events. So Cielo Grande would be one. This parking lot would be another one. We had an incident, De Bremen on the opposite, well, I guess that is the De Bremen one. It could be for downtown parking where we have a public parking lot across the street from the library. It would avoid people trying to sell parking spaces if there were downtown events, things like that.
Okay. Pioneer Plaza?
Could be.
Okay, any other questions, discussions? Go ahead, Counselor Peterson.
Yes, the zoo. Mhm.
Oh, wow. Go ahead. Anything else, Counselor Peterson? Okay, Counselor Perry?
Yes, I would, probably most of my questions would probably be, because I don't want to go into lengthy, if it's something that we're going to, in my opinion, consider putting into maybe next month's to look at, because I have several questions, but there's, for instance, on 413 of 4 accessing use, it says in 4.13, upon completion of the event holders shall meet with the RCCC staff to review the cleanup of the facility and to determine if additional cleanup measures need to be taken or any repairs are needed. I would assume that the convention center staff would not be who would be contacted for something at Pioneer Plaza or at Cielo Grande or at the zoo or something downtown. So there's some areas in here that, for me, need some cleanup, or maybe a better way of saying that, because that's not fair. I don't know. There may be justification in some of this that I just don't understand yet. So I think for me, and I could go through all of my concerns, but I sure would hate to waste everyone's time if it's something that maybe we could meet, and discuss and see what could be brought back next month, unless there's a major reason that we need to move through all these considerations today and then send that on to full council. What would be the, I guess for you, Juanita, what would your preference be?
Well, if you have hesitation, I don't want you to send it to full council and then have hesitation there. So I'd rather you hold off on it. Let's answer your questions and make sure you're comfortable with it before it goes to council.
And there again, just coming right back on to council, and especially with COVID, it's just kept so much
Right.
at distance and at bay of the ability to really sit down and get into knit and grit. But y'all staff know me well enough. I like to really understand. And so I do have probably about 7 or 8 questions that maybe we can work through.
Sure.
And then so if there's not a massive need for this to be put through this month, I would like for this to be tabled and brought back next month as in consideration.
Sure, yeah, we'll continue operating under the current policy for fees and parking until this is adopted. So that's, the bigger issue was Cielo Grande and one individual event that caused the most chaos, I would say, and inconsistency with individual citizen taking up some city space and selling parking spaces. And then the event organizer also selling parking spaces and then also disposing of waste for RVs. That is not allowed, and we want to make sure that that does not continue to happen, so.
Are we expecting that event to happen in the next 30 days?
No.
Okay. I would feel more comfortable, and I think
That's
that'd be more fair to you
Sure.
for us to meet and sit down and go through it to give me a better education. Is that okay? So I'd make a motion, or do we even need a, we don't need a motion
I
to
don't think it's
table.
necessary. Let's just refer it back to staff, if that's okay with everyone.
Okay.
I hate to table, and then you got to take it off the table and, all of that. So if kind of consensus to refer it back to staff I have some wordsmithing to do, like always.
And I found some too, and I just felt like it just wasn't fair.
Sure.
Okay. What?
And just know, you guys can always come to me before the meeting
Yes.
if you
Yes.
want to chat.
And
so.
there again, that's what I was saying. I think that the longer I'm with council, I will catch a lot of this
Sure.
ahead of time. So when the agenda came out, it was fresh and new to me, and I just wasn't going to have the time to be able to really work through that before this meeting. So.
No worries. We want to make sure that it's right and that you guys feel comfortable with it, so not a problem.
Can I just say something for everybody's consideration, if you don't mind? I have a lot of trouble with the words parking facility.
Okay?
And because when I think of a parking facility, I do think of a high-rise parking lot or a facility meaning not just a space of land. So
Okay.
I don't know if anybody else feels that way, but I sure would like to see us look at the word facility. And if there is another word to use, I don't know that there is.
We'll get out the trusty thesaurus.
Yep, yep. I think it says lot, but anyway. So if it's okay with everyone, let's send this back to staff. And if we have any discussion or questions, we will get with staff a long time before the next
And that's what I was going to say.
legal committee meeting.
Madam Chair, I will commit to getting with you.
Let's do
and
it.
sit down with maybe attorney
Parker?
and you, and let's just sit down, have a cup of coffee, and go through this, and
Perfect.
then we'll have something great we can bring back and work through.
I love
All right?
that idea.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, guys. We'll
I'm
see
gonna stay
this
here
next
because
month.
the next one is
Next
mine
one's
too.
yours too. Yes,
Yes.
it is.
I'm in the hot seat.
Our next agenda item, number 5, is the Economic Development Corporation's agreement, and I see their president in the lobby,
Yes.
and now he's in here with us. So, Ms. Jennings, do you want to
I will introduce and then-
introduce this? Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
So as part of our community partners and programs, we started to implement a tailored and consistent contract that met the needs of the full council and the expectations of what is needed in their scope of service. And so this contract is similar to other community partners, but really is specific to what they do and what is needed for the city. So the biggest change that you guys will notice in this one is obviously the format, the layout, the compensation has very specific measurements to that. And then also the metrics that will be aligned with Exhibit A, which is the service agreement. So just making sure that the money that the city is funding to the EDC, that there's a good working relationship and a good partnership, and then making sure that they are doing what you guys have asked them to do by ensuring we're getting our quarterly reports, that we're getting accurate financial statements, because we don't want to be in the same situation we previously were with another entity. Since this has come out, there was some discussion with our city manager about the funding levels, and I believe you guys will address that here, but I did invite the president, Mike Espiritu, to come and speak if you have any questions for him. He has reviewed this contract before. We worked together with our city manager and Parker and came to the mutual agreement of what is before you this afternoon. So Mike, if you have anything?
Well, good afternoon, Madam Chair and
Good to see you.
council members. Always good to see you. Thank you so much for your time. This is an important time of the year, right? So, and you're holding your head like this. I was working on my budget too, and I came over here, so I understand completely what you're going through. We're excited about our continued relationship with the city of Roswell. Especially in these times, we cannot afford not to think about the future of our community. I know that, Madam Chair, you understand that probably better than a lot of folks in your previous experience in life with economic development. This contract is quite different from our previous contract. I'm comfortable with it. I have no issues with reporting. I have no issues with being open and transparent with our financials. I have no issue with sharing our audit information, which we already do anyway. We have no issue with metrics. In fact, the proposal we had originally sent to staff included our goals, which were quite rigorous, which included job creation goals and things of that nature. When we drafted those goals, that was pre-COVID, and we believe we still meet those goals. I think, however, instead of focusing so much on business attraction on the front end, on the technical side, we'll be doing a lot on business retention expansion. That is, let's work on the folks that have invested in Roswell already. Let's work with the people, the businesses, and the companies, and the people that have invested time, created jobs, and are already in our community. Attracting new companies is pivotal to basic economic development principles, and we'll continue to do those things. And apologize, Madam Chair, I was out in the hallway talking about a project. So the business never stops for us. But we'll spend a lot of time this coming year talking to our in-place businesses and help them continue to grow and expand, and more importantly, hope to get back on their feet after this crisis concludes. The other basic tenets that we'll be very involved with is the development of our workforce. It's difficult to understand where our workforce is today because of the COVID virus. We don't know. I don't think anyone knows where we're really headed as a result of the virus with people. And it's not a wait-and-see approach. It is, but it isn't. What we have to do is still work towards the career tech education programs, develop the workforce for tomorrow with today's youth in Roswell, Chaves County. Through our career tech education program, we've already started the dialogue. We've already had lots of meetings with local companies, and the Department of Workforce Solutions here in Roswell came down, and we've on the pathway to create apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship programs for young people in high school so they don't leave Roswell, Chaves County, or New Mexico to go someplace else. I know I'm not that naive to believe that people won't leave, but if we can create a pathway of excitement for them, of a career opportunity and possibility of jobs here, they're more apt to stay here for a long time and help those companies that desperately need people and help today. So we'll work with the pre-apprenticeship programs in the high school. The young folks will be able to pathway through. Let me back up just a moment. We've focused primarily on the aviation sector out of the Roswell Air Center because there's so much need out there as far as employees, highly technical fields, great paying jobs, and that we wanted to create these programs for our folks at the high school level. The Perkins Title V grant changed this year, which allowed some opportunity, some flexibility in public education for coursework. We're hoping to leverage that, where we can create some programs through RISD and the other districts within the county to create the programs to line up with Eastern's programs, so we get these folks, young folks, into one of these companies we have here in Roswell. The pre-apprenticeship program is for kids already in school. Most seniors don't go to school all day long, and take away this year, of course, but in normal years, they're usually in school a half a day, and they're usually working someplace, work-study program or something, and that's what this apprenticeship program, pre-apprenticeship program, is designed to do. We want them first to graduate high school, but what we also want to do is create the opportunity for them to work for a company while they're getting some education, apprenticeship training. We can leverage JTIP dollars to do this. We can leverage the Perkins grant dollars to do this as well, and then move into the apprenticeship programs once they move past the high school and graduate into the Eastern New Mexico University here in Roswell system. Now, some young people will probably just go right to work in the industry, and that's okay. The apprenticeship program model after high school allows them to get further advanced skills, which translate into better wages for them and a higher skill set for the companies they'll be working for. We've already spoken with all the aviation companies, all the MRO companies here at the Roswell Air Center. Every one of them are excited about that. Worked with USA Beef and worked with Leprino as well. So we've had these meetings already pre-COVID. I mean, not that long ago, because I haven't been here that long, but we had these meetings late last year and early this year, and we will continue those. So that's kind of where we're headed. We think that from a business attraction standpoint, we'll do some trade shows, but really the proof in the pudding is really when you go do sales missions with companies, looking at the guys right across the table like we are today, to talk to them and educate them, and so they have the vision of what Roswell's all about. Oftentimes I have found in my travels as an economic developer that most people don't know where certain things are. Sometimes they don't even think New Mexico is part of the union. But so our responsibility, our obligation is to teach and coach businesses and those that are making site selection recommendations to companies where Roswell is and what we have to offer. And I know I've talked about aviation, but we'll also be working the ag path. The apprenticeship program piece is really exciting because we can wrap up so many industries, and no one's really doing it in New Mexico. And the state, when we've met with them, they're really excited to get moving forward here in our part of the world, which I'm pretty excited about. Lastly, we're very involved with the shortage of housing in our region. I know you're aware of it. Not only in Roswell, we have problems with affordable homes, but we have them in the entire southeast region of our state. Recently, we had a meeting, economic developers from the 3 counties. We met and talked to Eddie, Lee, and Chavez, and economic developers from the 4 cities within those counties. We talked about this problem. And if you recall, back in December, we had a housing summit. And at that summit, we laid out the problems that we have. And obviously, it's been highlighted by the oil field, but it's also highlighted by the MRO pieces out of the Air Center. It's highlighted by other industries that we hope to attract here. People won't come if there's no place to live. So we've been on a pathway, and we've created a consortium, the 4 economic developers in these cities. And as a result of the consortium, because we all have some need to market our communities for housing opportunities, that we've attracted a couple of developers thinking about Roswell and these other 3 communities, and also a possible project in applying to creating more housing. So we're encouraged by that. It's certainly good for Roswell, certainly good for the citizens of Chavez County and the people in southeast New Mexico. And it is truly part of making it a better place for people to live. You know, we have challenges attracting physicians and nurses and, the professional staff, and without adequate housing for those types of people, it'll continue to be a struggle. So even though it's not considered industrial that we typically are associated with, it's still part of the requirements, still part of the need to create a better quality of life for the people that are even thinking about moving here to our part of the world. So that's pretty much what I'll share with you. I'm excited about continuing on with our relationship with the city of Roswell, and I stand for your questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Questions or comments?
You've covered things very well. I appreciate the information and the good job you're doing over there and your whole team. I know it's difficult times right now with COVID but it sounds like, y'all still thriving for expectations and moving forward, so I appreciate that.
Madam Chair, Councilman, I'll share with you, I've been in the office every day, and I just have the doors locked. So I know if someone wants to come in, they would have to ring a doorbell or call me on my cell phone, and then I'll visit with them. But it's important enough that we stay positioned where people know that we're still active, we're still engaged, and we still have needs to support our community. So thank you for those comments. I appreciate that.
Councilor Peterson?
Well, I just want to thank you. You guys are doing a great job out there. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it.
And I'd like to make a few comments just so everybody realizes this, that you're taking a cut in what we're giving, or in the past have given to the EDC, and so we appreciate that. And I think this is a good model in that I know you're enhancing your membership and their dues, so that's, or I hope you continue to do that. And I think that's really a good sign for us. The other thing I think I just wanted to say about this is how much I appreciate the collaboration that you have with the city. And I know there are pieces in here that discuss more collaboration than we've had before. So appreciate you accepting that as well. I think we can only complement each other, and it's such an important thing we're talking about here, and it requires that. And I appreciate your patience too in us rewriting this whole agreement, but it goes along now with the other agreements that we're doing for outside activities, so appreciate that too. I don't remember. Seems to me there was one thing, but maybe not. But Parker, there is on page 22 of the packet, which is page 1 of the, page 1 of the whole thing, of the whole agreement. At the very bottom, there's an extra line there as if something is supposed to go in there.
No, that seems to be some kind of a word problem. We'll go up and fix that.
Can you fix it? Because
Yeah,
it looks like it's missing something, and I don't want it to appear as
Yeah.
something could be filled in there.
I think that's just a formatting
I figured
glitch.
so.
I'll fix it.
Okay. Appreciate that. That's the only thing I see. So, question, are you going to be presenting your annual kind of report in June? Better ask to the council meeting.
What we're doing with all the annual reports is they're going to be presented in the finance packet. So EDC and Main Street, EDC has already turned in their annual report, which
Okay.
last year they didn't have one that they were required to do, but they actually did one anyway. And then the Main Street one will be in the packet because we won't have presentations at the June meeting.
Will not. Okay.
Will not, no. I think it's going to be Mr. Nebb giving you guys another
Right.
update.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, so I guess that was leading to whether or not this goes on the consent agenda.
I believe we need to make one correction, and I don't know if that happens here or during the budget process to the compensation.
Let's do it here, I
Okay.
think.
It's item number 4, and it is item D, and the allocation from 75 to 96. which-
Okay, I circled that. I wondered about that.
Which is
Okay.
still a reduction. It's the
Yes.
20, it's a 20% reduction. And Mr. Nebb, if he hasn't already, he will send you the information of what he and I and we had discussed with outside partners and the contracts.
Okay, so what you're saying is that on item 4 of the agreement, which is compensation D, which is on page 23 of the packet, item D at the top, instead of the 75, should read 96,000.
Yes,
Which, like
ma'am.
you say, is still a reduction of the 20%.
Yes.
We'll take care of that, too.
So,
Yes.
Madam Chair, with that being taken care of and the caveat of a motion, we can just put this on consent. Is legal okay with that? Okay.
I guess, yeah,
Make sure.
with those 2 changes,
2 changes. Oh, yeah.
getting rid of that line in
I was
the,
going to say, what's that?
96.
Yeah, okay. All right.
so if we could have a motion then, unless there are any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, can we have a motion?
I will make a motion, Madam Chair, to recommend approval of the Business Retention Expansion and Economic Development Services Agreement to full council on the consent agenda with 2 amended changes, one being striking out the line directly underneath technical services on page 1 of the agreement. And then in 4D, paragraph 4D, the city has allocated 75,000. 75,000 shall be stricken, and in its place, 96,000 to be put in there.
Second? I'm sorry, okay. Any further discussion or questions?
Thank you.
Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. This will be on the consent agenda for the June council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may.
Certainly.
Make you aware of something. I know that the Chamber of Commerce, the Roswell Chamber of Commerce, and the Economic Development Corporation, with the COVID, we are combining forces to do a Shop Local campaign. and to alert people to get out and visit our local businesses once we get more opportunity, which it sounds like we will. So we'll be starting that next week. I just want, you as a city of Roswell, we, the city of Roswell, we should know that, that the business community is working really hard towards alerting and advising people to start doing some great business within ourselves to help the people that we have here that are hurting. So just want to share that little bit of news for you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, moving right along, the next item of business is item number 6, which is a revision, revising an airport ordinance. Mr. Morris is here to discuss this. You want to just go right ahead?
Sure, Madam Chair. As stated, this is a text amendment that would go into the zoning code. It's a new section that will be applied, Article 4, and it pertains to airport hazards, primarily obstructions and the development and placement of things in the hazard ways of the airport. This has already been put through legal before. It was sent to planning and zoning last night, where it was adopted or recommended for adoption 4-0.
Okay.
And just stand for any questions since y'all have seen it before.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Counselor Perry?
And that was that you said Planning and Zoning Commission, this is what you said, 4-0?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I was making sure I understood that correctly. And my other question was, the Airport Advisory Committee, what was their vote on?
I believe it was unanimous, but Mark?
It was. It was.
It was. I wasn't there.
I just couldn't remember, so I just wanted to...
It was 5-0. And it actually is a commission, not a committee.
The Airport Advisory?
I guess you maybe need to correct that on the abstract.
I just wanted
Yes.
confirmation of that. I like to sort of know when other boards or commissions, committees, whatever, have heard things, for me to know what their end thought was amongst their vote. Helps me to understand.
I'm going to ask Parker, if you don't mind, talk a little bit about the process that this has gone through, because it has in the whole huge or code that was in there previously, or the two of you can tag team or whatever.
Well, I'll just say, I mean, this was something that the previous city attorney had worked on quite a bit. And really, so this is only part of 2 different ordinances that we're doing, and the other one we also considered last time and recommended for approval. And the idea was that we would cut out a lot of the stuff that's currently in the airport ordinance. A lot of that can go into resolutions and policies that are much easier to change and adopt and adapt as time goes on. And so this is just one piece of that overall project that we're doing.
And this part is related to the development of stuff, the physical or other kinds of potential hazards that are in the way, and as opposed to policies and such. This is the development part, and it does belong in the zoning code. It just makes it easier and cleaner and consistent with the intent of the zoning code. So,
Okay. Anything else?
Madam Chair, if I could make one just personal
Sure.
request, not making it on for anyone else. Before this gets to full council, I'm sure it's just as simple as maybe even tomorrow, if I could get an email of currently what we have in Article 52, so that I can see, where I see right here where these additions are going in, but I really don't see what's before it and what's currently there, for me to get a better understanding as I'm reading this. When I first read it, I was trying to figure out, now how's this going to be done, how's that going to be done, but I'm assuming a lot of the other language that's already there in the verbiage will help me to better understand. I'm not contesting it at all, but I'd like to see the language, if I could get that emailed to me.
and if you'd want, I mean, we could just provide you guys with a new copy of the zoning codes. Complete new copy. It's changed considerably if you haven't
Really?
looked at it in recent years.
I'd like to have a copy.
I wanted to just get
That would help me.
get
Email,
y'all
not a hard copy.
an email. You want an email? It's a kind of a lengthy document, but I'll see. I'll email it to you.
But it's a lot of paper, too, so.
That's a lot of paper.
For
I'll
an
email it
email.
all to you. In fact, it's
You
on the
want paper?
website. You can download
Okay.
it, but I'll make sure you guys get it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you know, go ahead.
You want paper?
That'd be great if we had that. I don't know, Mr. Patterson, do the things that were, the handouts, I guess, because that's what they were, that were printed or provided to the Airport Advisory Commission, that the color-coded sheets that showed what was pulled from what and where it went, maybe
Oh, yeah.
would be helpful for the committee?
Sure, I don't know how much that would, with regard, I think this is all new
all
additions, so
new.
it would be all
Oh,
just,
this is new.
It's all
Right.
new.
Okay.
yeah, I think that's why it didn't really make much sense to have strike-throughs and underlines,
Okay,
because it's all
sure.
new.
Right.
Okay. But at any rate, maybe it would be good to have those. Go ahead, Counselor Peterson.
I think I think it was in discussion with the FAA, but the airport people, that was my understanding. I think it's a good thing to have. It allows us to protect our airport from possible obstructions for safety at that facility. So it's not a big deal. It's another page. I think it works just in case you need it.
Yeah, we don't have our airport guys, well, he's out there, but yeah, my understanding is we need this stuff. FAA requires us to be able to, for example, keep the path clear for the airport, for the airplanes.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would just say this comes at a good time. As many new aircraft as we have out there, and we just heard from another company, they're planning on a tear-down pad. We are looking at the possibility of moving a tear-down pad, and those are some of those areas where a lot of this will come into play. We have other businesses and facilities that abut the airfield that do have debris that from time to time could blow in. So I think this comes at a good time with the extra business that we have down there to protect the assets, and maybe this would be a tool to allow those at the airport to be able to do something much quicker than would have taken previously.
Correct.
Scott
Go
is
ahead.
here if you would like to make a comment about where this is coming from.
Sure.
So I didn't hear the question, but Parker was explaining a little bit about protecting airspace and approaches and that sort of thing. And yes, that comes from the FAA. It's part of our grant assurances when they do any work on runways or anything like that. So yeah, that's where it's coming from. I wouldn't say, I'm sure there's some leeway in there with them on certain projects and stuff if we had something that did get too high, but we are required to try and protect that airspace going around our airport.
Okay. I have some maybe unimportant questions. Is there, would it be good to mention drones anywhere in this? Because we don't. And I'm thinking, I guess, on page 3 of the packet, which is at the very top, where it talks about airport hazards generally. It just seems to me drones are becoming such a problem for aviation. Are they included in what this says? It talks, I guess it's 2. It talks about searchlights, lasers. Just a question. I guess I'm on page 33 of the packet in 2A2. Where it says the hazards include basically things that can blind the operations of the aircraft, including searchlights, lasers, or ground-mounted lighting that may mimic landing. I just never saw the word drone, and just curious if it shouldn't be in there somewhere.
And maybe we could look at something that, like drones and rockets, the Estes rockets type launches that Mark's always engaged with. Things like that possibly, but that would be a general thing that would be in violation of the FAA.
Correct.
That's what I was going to say, Madam Chair, is probably that anything that we put in place, if FAA has something higher,
Sure.
we of course have to go with their regulations. So I would dare say there's probably already federal oversight in that area. Is that right, Scott? Or
Yeah, that is correct. So both for the rockets, for the model airplanes, for the drones, and nowadays, and it's constantly changing these days with drones. You're spot on that drones have changed the world, but now what used to be a remote control aircraft that you see a lot of hobbyists would fly now falls under the same rules as drones, and so there's the commercial side of it where you have to actually have a drone license to fly that legally and be paid for it. And then there's the hobby side of it where many of those same rules are the same, but quite honestly, in a year or two or three, it may change again. It just changed a couple of years ago once more. So I think Councilor Perry is exactly correct. If we refer to it at all, I would refer back to the appropriate FAA regulations because they will change from time to time. And we would be doing a lot of changes to this ordinance if we didn't do that.
Okay. All right. Thank you, both. I watch too much television. And then I just have another quick question. On that same page, under B, preparation of airport approach plans, that first sentence, these are run-on sentences. I had a hard time with this, you guys. Where it talks about revise an airport approach plan. Do we have such a thing now? Just out of curiosity.
So there's a couple of pieces to this. What we do as the city is we protect that airspace. Those for the airport, there's two different pieces to it. There's the visual approach or the visual rules that pilots do where they're literally just flying by what they see, and there's the instrument approach. We don't get involved in the instrument side of it other than our zoning for approach paths and that sort of thing, and that's where we were referring to that earlier. But so yes, we do. We have airspace that's designed for the airport, and in our what's called the ALP or the Exhibit A and with the FAA, we have that airspace designed in a 3D picture. And so, yes, we do that.
Okay.
On a lower level, we don't do it for the instruments, but we do it for the visual, the airport airspace.
Okay. I'm learning. So that. And then I have one other question. If any of this affects the ETZ, is any of this outside of city limits in the ETZ?
It potentially could be, but so we'd have to take a look at the ETZ. I know the county has wanted to look at revisions to the ETZ, and that would have to be considered within those. We don't have jurisdiction outside of that line, but this would be everything inside our municipal boundaries.
Say that again, it would?
I mean, this would apply only to the stuff inside our municipal boundaries. Anything outside in the ETZ, I mean, within 2 miles, would have to be in that other zoning.
Okay. So I guess I'm asking if the ETZ area has any concerns that are addressed in here that they may not be addressing.
It's possible. As I'm thinking about it, on the northeast end of runway 321 and the southwest end of it, all of that lower stuff that we have to worry about is contained in actually within the airport bounds. But on the north end, between the relief route and runway 17, some of that property could pose as a problem, and it's in the county.
Okay. So I think it's important to note that what we're doing today does not affect any property in the county, and there is property a little bit, we're saying, in the county that is contingent or contiguous, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Maybe it's not important. Yes, sir. Oh, does it really? Councilor Peterson saying the ETZ does have this language in it, ETZ ordinance, or yeah, it is. Thank you.
Which portion? I'm sorry, is your microphone on? I'm sorry, I'm not hearing you. Oh, I apologize. I totally heard something else. No, okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Just my question comes with the motion. This is for advertisement, correct?
It's an ordinance, yes, so it
Okay.
would be
Okay.
for advertisement, yes.
All right, Madam Chair, if it's appropriate, I'd like to make a motion that we recommend to full council for the regular June meeting, approval of advertisement for ordinance of the city of Roswell amending the zoning code relating to airport hazards and obstructions by modifying Article 4 definitions and adding a new Article 52, Section 18, airport hazards and obstructions, and providing for severability and an effective date.
Okay. Second? Okay. We have a motion and a second to refer this to council for advertising a possible public hearing. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Okay, the motion carries. We'll see this in June. The
Madam
council-
Chair,
Yes, sir.
without me, you lose a quorum, and I need a 3-minute recess if we could.
All right, that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Let's take a 3-minute recess. It's 5:10. We'll be back, say, at 5:15. Thank you.
Ratified, yes.
Okay, if we can, we're going to reconvene at 5:15. This is the Legal Committee of the Roswell City Council. We are on item number 7, which is a proposed ordinance on home occupation. Mr. Morris, do you want to give us a presentation? We've seen this before, right?
Yes, ma'am. This is the third time it's been before you guys. Once it would just bypass. We went second, and last time we talked about it, didn't really get into the nitty-gritty. And so we were going to start again on this. It started out, the genesis of this started out as some issues that we were running into with home occupations. Especially one in particular, one general category of home occupations. But there's other things that, of course, along the way, since we opened it up, we said, oh, well, here's an issue. We got another issue because a lot of our guys are dealing with a lot of strange situations that we are finding out there in the communities. A lot of our town was platted in basically the 40s through like the 80s and into the 90s. But changes have occurred systemically within a lot of family groups and a lot of desires to have different things at these houses and these properties. And so we're kind of trying to work with these new conditions. So that's what you see here. It's called home occupation, but it's about halfway through that you actually start that part. So the first part actually is on page 1. And is this how we want to, are you guys comfortable with just kind of slogging through these things?
Yes, is that okay? Good, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
If we could, as we go through them, if we have any
Yes.
thoughts, if we could handle them then would be
Yes.
great. Thank you.
That would be great with us.
Good.
Starting basically on definitions is section 1. We've come across this, it's like you think the front door traditionally has always been the front of the property is the short section of the property and it goes back. And that works in the old section where you basically had 50 foot wide by 140. So the front door was always kind of like on the short end. But we have a lot of properties, it turns out, that they've actually turned the house because they had extra room, they turned it. And they built it long this way. So their front door is actually on the long side. And so that messed it up. It's a simple thing, but it messes up setbacks. It actually messes up with the addressing, because now you're addressing, potentially the side of the house. Well, you can't do that. But so this just changes it. It's one of those situations. That's the first thing. The second one, at the bottom of page 36.
Can I ask you on that first one there?
Sure.
Because I'm still a little confused on that. It says the property line of a lot abutting a street, comma, except on a corner lot, comma, where the front lot line shall be the lot line abutting a street with the shortest dimension, and then adding, except for corner lots where the property address and front door face the lot line abutting the other street. I'm still in confusion, and I've read it several times. Does the pertinent portion that says where the front lot shall, the part before what you're adding, does that go with the beginning of the sentence, or does that go with the corner lot portion of the sentence?
The part that's going with the corner is the stuff that we've added.
So is there but the portion that says where the front line, where the front lot line shall be the lot line abutting a street with the shortest dimensions, does that go with the property line of a lot abutting a street, or does that go with the except on a corner lot?
That piece would be going with abutting the street.
Okay.
The issue that we're having is that the one is that when the shortest distance on a corner lot becomes your front, and you had a house that is sitting sideways
Correct.
on that parcel, it's a side corner.
Right.
Actually, it's a 20-foot setback on there, and it messes up the dimensions.
So I guess my question is, does the previous verbiage except on a corner lot, the first time that said except on a corner lot, does that need to be stricken? I'm still.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Actually, I would say we should strike that.
Okay,
particular piece.
because it brings confusion to me as I read it, and if there's an old saying for us, if there's a mist in the pulpit, there's a fog in the pew, so if I don't understand it, I know people out there won't get it either, so.
Sometimes you
Okay.
get too close to the woods.
So the except on a corner lot is stricken, so then it would just read, "The property line of a lot abutting a street where the front lot line shall be the lot line abutting a street with the shortest dimensions, except for," and then, okay. Now I can better understand that. I'm sorry, thank you.
Oh, no, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, the one on page, at the bottom of that same page, there's a little thing with the single-family detached dwellings per lot. But it's number 4 is a situation where we've encountered, and usually in the older parts of the city, where on these longer lots, for whatever reason, the original house was built at the back of the lot. And so they've got this huge front lot. And I think maybe at that time, it was intended they would build another house, maybe for rental or something in the front. But the zoning of that entire area is single family. And so it seemed like it was kind of a waste in a lot of these people. And we've had some requests for people, they want to build a second unit. And we have a dire need for affordable units and rentals. And so we were looking at this and saying, if you can kind of meet this criteria, and we have a couple of them sitting in a jar, it would offer an opportunity for somebody to be able to build a second unit that would be a rental unit. These are not extravagant properties, but they'd be very affordable and help provide for something that we really need. So that's the intent there on that one. The other one is kind of the corollary, number 5 at the top, page 37. We also have properties that have existing two separate units on a single parcel, and it's a single-family residential district. The problem is that what we do is we're getting calls from title companies going, is this a legal conforming parcel? Well, you got 2 properties on a single lot of record, so it's kind of hard for them to mentally get around this. So what we're thinking is we want to encourage repairs and people coming in. They can't technically get a permit, and so we were like, no, that's not right. We got to get people in. We got to get them to fix these houses. This would allow those situations that are existing and have been there for a little bit. They have to demonstrate they've been there for a while, and say, okay, you'll be considered a conforming structure or structures on this single lot of record, so they don't have to go through a subdivision, and it's hard to because they don't meet the minimum lot sizes and all this other stuff. And so this just allows those type of situations to become considered conforming and encourage, hopefully, the repairs that we had been asked to do. And it didn't make sense to rezone it, because it was too small. We got a couple like little clusters of these in a couple places, so it would allow for this to continue.
Madam Chair, if I could just say, and I would assume some of these are also situations of non-conforming where they may have 2 meters and that kind of thing.
That's exactly it.
So asking them to go into complete conformability is, what we're going to end up with is one structure that's going to be left to be dilapidated, and we're going to be dealing with more trouble down the road, so.
That's the genesis of that. And like I said,
I see that as favorable of
Yes.
lifting some maybe burdenable restrictions that may be keeping people from fixing properties up and utilizing them as they were intended to be used to start with, so good.
Could I ask a quick question, if I may? In both of these, you've mentioned, and I think somewhere else, prior to January 1st, 2010?
Mm-hmm.
Why that date? Oh, that one should be 20, I think. I'm
Right,
sorry.
on that.
You've got 10 on number 5.
Just because
that-
we wanted to we had to pick a date and say, okay, it's something that should have been here for a while. So, because if it was forwarded, they shouldn't have gotten a second permit for that parcel to begin with.
Right.
So we were like, I'm not sure when a lot of these properties, they date date back from the 70s and 80s, and even into the 90s. So we're kind of like said, okay, 2010, it's an arbitrary number, or date, but it's one that fits us, seemed to make sense. But if you want to make it 2000 or 2015, but it should be sometime in the past as an existing condition, and it's been there for a little while. Nobody's complained about it until today. And it's only because of the problems with the title companies and the transfers and
Right.
building permits and stuff.
So I guess my question is, why is one 2020 and the other 2010?
Well, the other one we wanted to demonstrate, the first one, actually, prior to,
I mean, wouldn't it help if they were consecutive?
well,
Madam
maybe
Chair, can you
you're
share
saying
with
no.
me where the 2020 is? I'm sorry.
Back on page 36, number 4 in the second line,
I see, thank you.
prior to, and then on the next page in number 5, it says 2010. I'm just thinking it would be easier if they were all the same, or maybe not, I don't know.
Staff would say January 1st, 2010 for number 4 is equally, because these are usually older parcels anyway. They're not
Okay.
new ones, so with your concurrence, I'll just change that to 2010. And then we have some
On number
consistency.
4, you'll change to 20.
On number 4.
Okay.
And then we'll leave number
It
5
just
alone.
seems to me, if they were the same, it'd be easier to
That's fine.
be able to track them or cite them. Thank you. Bless you.
All
Okay,
right.
go ahead, Mr. Morris, I'm sorry.
Okay, the next set of amendments are more for parking spaces related to RVs, parks. Up until a couple of months ago, we had a whole bunch of potential RV parks coming through. I mean, they were everywhere, coming in. So we wanted to look at this, and one of them was on J, to look and basically say that it had to do with pull-throughs, it had to do with pull-through spaces,
Right.
and not every place needs to have as many, because what it does is it chews up a lot of space unnecessarily instead of back-in spaces. And so just want to kind of say, okay, let's see, like J, one hard pack on-site parking stall per RV space, plus adequate number of on-site paved overflow parking stalls for the RV park employees and visitors. It seemed the language is kind of it depends, and it's also situational on the RV and how they're laying it out. And so we would make sure that there's enough spaces, and it seemed to work on a couple of the tests that we were looking at. I mean, some of the site plans that we were looking at the time. The next one was directly associated with pull-throughs, and the code says everything is supposed to be a pull-through. We don't think that necessarily has to be if you can park it, but we just like to say at least 30% of them 33% of them have to be pull-throughs, not all of them. It depends on the owner and what they're doing and how they're laying it out. Some of these RV parks have a lot more room, and we're willing to chew it up with this, and so it worked. So that's what we're doing with this.
Okay.
But as I said, most of these site plans have now kind of gone away for the short term.
Madam Chair, if I can say, I appreciate changes like this, because I truly believe that sometimes, and it is the city's job for safety and welfare, I understand that, but so many times in our attempts of helping folks with safety and welfare, we end up making business so hard on people, when in all reality, like situations like this, we're just trying to keep two RVs from bumping into each other. Well, that's what insurance is for, so I appreciate lessening restrictions. I believe those are just as critical as looking at new restrictions, so.
And our guys do work, it doesn't, sometimes our zoners don't get you can't believe how much time they spend trying to make things work without having to cost the developer. And so a lot of these changes are because the Rubik's Cube just can't seem to get lined up, and so we got to go back to the text, just so you can do something that's really easy. If that's okay, then moving on to page 40. This is under the, and this is just accessory uses, not primary uses, accessory. At the very top there, we're requesting that overhead and underground utilities be noted on any plan for accessory uses in the residential district. This is prompted by a variance application we had for a metal garage that was installed without a permit. So, of course, then they needed a variance for a couple of setbacks, and while we were out there looking, we saw an electrical wire that was drooping down, coming within a couple of feet of a metal building. And we're like, how did you build this without, because they usually arc. And so the idea is at least make somebody aware that it's even out there, because XL got out there and immediately raised the power line to clear the roof so it would be safe. It was kind of like, that was one of those things. So we'd like to know about this stuff, and that's a health safety thing. I don't want a bug zapper out there. Coming down, and actually what we're trying to, the next batch is trying to get away from, we have a rule right now where everything that's built with a permit basically has to be 10 feet away from the primary structure. And this makes sense for some things, it doesn't make sense for other things. And what we're talking about is carports and pergolas. We've got a lot of
Carports and,
pergolas,
okay.
which is a fancy term for the stuff that vines grow on in the back. And technically, our rules have said, well, those have to be 10 feet from the house. And we're like, why? They could be, now we're not talking about enclosed, anything enclosed, nothing permanent, not a residential part of this thing. These are just structures we feel that they can be located with closer than 10 feet and still be safe, so long as the sides aren't enclosed, or they try to make it a residential component or use for habitation. So that's what that's all about. And also we're requesting that to increase the size of the square footage for requiring a permit in the backyard for accessory structure. 120 square feet is pretty small. I mean, basically it's one of those put together sheds. We can go to 200 feet. We feel that doesn't need, up to that point, you don't need a placement permit for the smaller ones. And then on the other side, we've got some of those with, this is in the code. Number 5 talks about fuel tanks. I'm not sure how many we still have in town, but it's there, and so we're kind of looking, trying to put some standards in here with the actual structure. I really don't know if that's even pertinent anymore with gas service being everywhere. I don't know if we have any fuel tanks out there. We have them here on city properties, unfortunately, but so that's what that is. And then the in-ground swimming pools, and basically we can modify, the intent of that is to allow for administrative adjustments if we get out in the field and the pool is closer to it. The idea is to allow for like administrative variance for a swimming pool, above ground swimming pools. And that's number 6. And now the next section, we've kind of found out that on commercial industrial parcels, this is the code section for accessory structures. Now, we had all this other stuff for residential accessory structures. We didn't have it for commercial. And actually, to me, that's a little bit more important in a lot of ways, because you're talking about commercial use and activities and beyond just whoever lives there. And so we just basically took everything that and we had this question come up a lot with contractors. Well, there's nothing in the code that says where I'm supposed to put this thing. Well, okay. So we're putting in some standards for those accessory structures, and we just basically replicated what we saw in the residential part and plopped it over into the other side. And it's kind of, and I'm just looking at this and going, well, we probably got on the next page, probably a little crazy. I'd really like to, and I don't know why we didn't catch this, eliminate number 5 and 6 in the commercial.
Tell me where we're at.
On page 42.
Okay.
When we brought all that over, we really don't need to talk about fuel, because that's all going to be gas. And
I'm
hopefully
still not
don't
seeing
have
where you're at. I'm sorry.
number 5 and number 6. About halfway down on page 42.
Okay, so we're talking about the tanks used for storage and the in-ground swimming pools.
Right. They're not normally in a commercial district, except in hotels, and that's part of the site plan process. So we got that covered. We can drop those two. If we're okay, everybody okay with that?
Okay, I'm just making sure I understand. Sorry, Madam Chair.
I don't know why we didn't, I apologize. That's been looking at that for 6 months now. Exceptions to the required yards, meaning the setbacks. We're adding carports, which would be consistent with what we looked, the text that we looked at earlier about getting closer than 10 feet. Open stairways, balconies, that's further down at the very bottom of page 42. And that continues on to top of page 43. It's just more descriptive about the same thing. We're not trying to change the intent there. And if we're okay with that, we're now at the belly.
I'm sorry.
No,
Yes.
go right ahead.
I just want really good, clear understanding. So, exception to required yards, B, currently it would read, open stairways, balconies, and chimneys may project no more than 5 feet into required yard. We are adding front yard, rear, and then the word yard, or street side yard on a corner lot. So we're just better clarifying so that we're not changing this 5 foot. We're just better clarifying for the reader to understand.
That's correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure there wasn't a new standard there. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we like porches, and we want them to extend out. Just wanted to clear. Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
What, I'm sorry. What-
41, Section B. D.
Carports and pergolas are what we talked about being exempt over on the next page, or on the previous page, on 40, under D. Carports are basically defined as a roof cover with some supports and open-sided, or at least on at least two sides. And so that's what that's trying to say there. That's an exception to that 10-foot. Okay.
And Madam Chair, I will want to come back to some of that here later. I'm still chewing on some of that.
Okay.
I do have one more question, though, back where we were on Section 5B, just for clarification. Balconies, patios and porches, are they considered balconies, or is that something totally separate?
Balconies,
Page 42, the very bottom, open stairways, balconies, and chimneys. Patios and porches are not part of this, correct?
no.
Okay. That was for definition clarification. Okay, thank you.
Do you want to go back to your questions, or you want to take
No, I
another-
think moving on, and then let me just, because I keep going back to it, and
Okay.
so, I'll-
And Madam Chair, if this is to give you guys enough time, I'd rather we go through this,
Oh,
but
yeah.
I'd like to bring this back, maybe for a formal, if you still got more things to think about over time. I mean, it took us 6 months through planning and zoning at various meetings to get parts of these chopped up, so I have no problem.
Sure, and Madam Chair, I think for me, the reason I really want to understand that really well, and it's almost comical, but I think over the years, being on the council previously, seems like detached buildings is the one thing that continues to come back over and over. And we go to changing the setbacks and then no setback against the backs of the yard and then new setback in it. And then we added the height, and it seems like that's been a lot of changes. So I just really want to get a good grasp as to where we are here as compared to those previous ones we've looked at.
And as I've always said, I'd rather you guys were
Sure.
absolutely comfortable with all of this stuff, so.
I really appreciate that you're not putting a timeline on
No,
this.
you got to be comfortable with it.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, as I said, the belly of the beast of these is the next section, which is our home occupation. And home occupations come in two sizes. There's minor and major. And the ones that we are having the most difficulty with are actually not to blame anybody, but it's landscaping and construction contractors. Home occupations are an interesting thing because they're intended to provide either for a slightly commercial use in a residential area, or you can think of them in some cases as an incubator for a business to get started, and then hopefully they're successful, and then they outgrow their place and then go to a normal place. So those are kind of but on top of that, we're still trying to balance the needs for economic purposes with the adjacent residences around there and their quality of life at the same time. And so generally, home occupations are intended to be quiet, kind of non-intrusive. You're not supposed to have advertising. The only exception is daycares under major. And so the idea is that they just kind of exist there without people noticing them. The problem has been, but is now, as I talked about, is vehicles. That's the issue, and equipment. And what's happening in some places is that there's a lot of stuff that people are trying to bring back to their houses. And so the question is how much? And this was the issue that we spent probably the longest with planning and zoning, is what kind of deal, how do we deal with, and it's equipment, it's large trucks, and how many trucks and employee parking all of a sudden showing up in some of these businesses. And people not being able to enjoy their homes as much as they could because at 6 o'clock in the morning, all the vehicles are getting fired up next door and the diesels and all that stuff. So that's kind of the backdrop on this. And so just starting at the top, section 2, this is halfway down page 43. This is minor occupations. You can do it in mobile home parks, recreational parks, so long as the park owner gives the consent for that use. So it's a rental space there. And that would be with any business. Typically, we want the property owner's consent to whatever you're planning on doing. On the next page, 44, we're striking the one home occupation license per residential dwelling unit. And the reason is this, that there are operations that have multiple companies, and the one that comes to mind immediately is like an internet company. They process orders, they send out shipments, they have different product lines, it's all virtual, but they need different business licenses to accommodate these different ventures that they have out there. And there's nothing that says you can't be a CPA and have your own internet firm. So we say, okay, well, if it's all confined to that and there's no intrusion, I mean, why would it be limited to one? And that's just that was our reckoning here.
I have a question about that.
Sure.
I know we talked about this, and I understand it completely, but I'm wondering if this is eliminating people getting multiple business license. So I guess my question is, would this be the place, or is it somewhere else, to say something like, you need, a business license for each business occupying one residence, or I didn't probably say that right, but,
There's a specific business license for a home occupation, and we
Right.
won't issue one right now, based on this, more than one per home address. And like I said, if they've got more than one business going, they're entitled, they would be entitled to getting multiple home occupation business licenses
right.
on this for all their different ventures.
But I guess shouldn't it say that? I mean, by taking out one is one thing, but maybe it should say you should have one for each business. I mean, I don't know, and this may not be the place
Madam
to
Chair,
put
and
it.
could it be that leaving F there where it currently is, taking that verbiage out and putting something in there to the effect of each home occupation, there must be a
single
home
or-
occupation license per
Each,
each
yeah,
business, because you may have a situation to where, in my case with 7 kids, fortunately they get old enough they're getting out, but if they did stay and one of them had a land mowing business, and yet I had a business as well, this would prohibit him currently, but at least with this it will show that there would need to be that.
yeah, I'm not opposed to eliminating this, but I just think there should be something in its place that says you can have more than one,
I think that's
just so people know they can, instead of that they can't. Okay, thank you. We're probably going to send it back to staff, yes.
Madam
Did you
Chair,
have a comment?
oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Go ahead.
One thing on the one you just mentioned before, which is section 2B, at the end there, and approval, it already has approval from the planning and zoning staff. That is an approval in accordance to the zoning code, correct?
Yes, sir.
I
Yes,
think
sir.
that I'd like to see that language added there just for clarification for folks, just the approval from the planning and zoning staff in accordance to the zoning code, just for further clarification.
So you're saying add in accordance?
Yeah, I would like
Okay.
to see that there.
That's fine. It's the standards that we're using.
We know it's not the case, but just so
No problem.
Joe, Q Public doesn't think that you're just going to decide to say no because you don't want them to have it there. You have a professional means to make that decision by.
Good.
We don't like arbitrary and capricious either.
Right.
Okay, general guidelines, which is section 3, starts on page 44. And this is for, just generally for minor and major home occupations. And we kind of beefed up in dealing with this. The language on the next page, the top 45. And that is no oversized vehicles and/or construction or heavy equipment shall be stored or used on the property or in the easements, alleys, or rights-of-way adjacent to or near the home. And we struck out which is normally used in residential homes. Normally, most homes don't need to have backhoes and that sort of thing. Oversized vehicles are in the definition section.
That was what I was about to ask you.
And it is a distinct thing, and it has definition sizes in there. Think semi-cabs, wreckers, things like this. And it has dimensions, and so we actually have also put our toes into how to define what is a large truck issue as well. We stayed with the existing, but it says these kinds of things shouldn't be in a residential district. And we're talking semis and like I said, wrecker trucks, tow trucks, those kind of non-construction as well.
Madam Chair, with me not having that definition in front of me, may I just ask, what about, like, I'm just thinking school buses? What about large RVs?
The RVs have their own section, and they have their own standards.
So they are not under definition of oversized vehicle. What about a school bus? I know we do have several folks within the district that are school bus drivers that do bring their vehicles home, if you would say, in between those hours.
Actually, that's interesting, because that hasn't come up, but I would say that it would fit within the oversized vehicle in terms of the length and the height and the width of these things. I haven't seen any at the house. I mean, this is the first time I've come across that. I'd have to go look at it. Next time we meet, we could have that discussion. Let me put in my notes.
Thank you.
Do they normally just keep it at the house during the daytime?
I do know a few drivers who, during the week, because they have to be out so early, some of the drivers have to go extensive distances to get these children. And if they live up here up north and they've got to go all the way to Pollard's yard or Hamilton's yard, I think those are the two bus companies, I believe, and get those, it doesn't make financial sense for them to drive school buses. And I think in the past, a lot of cities have allowed for that kind of stuff to keep, because it's not something a lot of people want to do, and they want people who are willing to do it to be able to accommodate them to do so. Weekends, I think they do end up back on the lot for maintenance and different things like that.
I think that the argument could be made that if the school bus were being located back at their residence during the daytime hours before everybody else most people are gone during the daytime hours, we could take a look at that. It's first, like I said, it's the first time I've had that one come up.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, let's see. Coming down on L, this just seemed wordy for us. We just said, if you've got stuff associated with a home occupation, it needs to be enclosed. Shouldn't be outside. And just the idea is that it doesn't need to be outside. Now the real guts of this is.
Could I interrupt you?
Sure.
I'm sorry. Could enclosed mean in a storage unit?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, just as long
Just out
as
of
it's
sight.
not outside.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Again, we're trying to preserve, where possible, the residential quality
Right.
of that particular location. Now, N is only two regular, and this is what we battled with back and forth in P&Z. The language that came out of this was only two regular-sized work-related vehicles or trailers are allowed to be parked on site in the driveway along with personal vehicles belonging to residents of the property and shall not block sidewalks. And this is differentiated. These are work-related. And this is where it gets really fun, because you can have some really big work-related trucks out there. I mean, you live over by Delicato, there, Linda Vista, and coming down that road at about 5:30, all the oil service trucks, I swear that half of them park on that road.
There.
And they're big. And so we kind of went, how do you differentiate that between a big truck? Because some of these can be enormous. But that's why we stayed with our oversized vehicle definition, because it's already in the code, and trying to differentiate a work truck, was it by weight or by length, or it got really crazy. And so but we're saying two trucks, two work-related vehicles, plus your personal vehicles, as long as they're parked on driveways, and do not block the sidewalks. And that's actually a bigger bugaboo for us, is the sidewalk issue for ADA. Secondly, O, additional standard-sized work-related vehicles and trailers, again, parked on site are required to have street access to the site, must be parked in a additional beyond the two. This is for vehicles, work-related vehicles, number 3. And we were not even trying to get to how many we should have overall, but can be parked in the rear or side yard with solid fencing, but are prohibited from alley access and shall not be parked in the streets, easements, alley, or right-of-way. So the idea is that you don't encircle a house in the street with all your work-related vehicles, personal vehicles, and that was the intent and that's kind of our deal. You can have two of them. P&Z's recommendation is you can have two work-related vehicles out in the front yard so long as they're parked. But if you got a third work-related vehicle, it has to be in the back, and you really can't exit off the alley. The alleys are not intended to be driveways. We've never allowed that. Our rule has been consistently, as long as I've been here and beyond that, that if you're going to access or use the alley for access into the backyard, you got to pave it. Now, if you pave it, it's a whole different issue. But those alleys get chewed up with people using them. Believe it or not, they do. And so that's kind of what we're looking at. How many work-related vehicles should a house have as part of a home occupation? And that's the crux of the issue. Because you want to grow the business. You want to let them have the business. But at what point, how many vehicles at that house, as a residential house, are good, and how much of that is now going to be bad for the people that have to live around that place? And so that's the central component of this whole mess. And it's with a home occupation where we're talking about, we're not long, and at 3 trucks, our concern was, okay, 2 is a guy and maybe 1 other additional employee coming in. 3, now you got to shift work. You basically are creating a yard at somebody's house. And so that was the whole key, and I'd really like you guys to think about it, because that's the dichotomy that we come into. How do you protect the residences from cars? Because now what happens is people are getting into those trucks and leaving, but they're leaving their personal vehicles behind as well. And so now you got cars on the streets and in the alleys and in all over the place. And that's the number. So that's what this is all about.
Okay, let me say just for a moment, Counselor Peterson needs to leave. Do you have any comments on this or any? Okay, if we can make note that Counselor Peterson is leaving at 5:56. Thank you. See you later. Can I ask a question, just because this is almost mind-boggling to me?
Just a point of order, have we just lost?
Yes,
Yes.
we lost, I was about
lost
to
a
say, we
quorum.
lost a quorum.
Is it-
Except Robert's rules says that once a quorum, you have a quorum. But I don't know that that's true for us. It probably isn't. We probably have lost a quorum. And we've got a real problem with the last item needing. Go ahead.
Can we take a 3-minute recess, 5-minute recess, something?
You're going to bring somebody in from the street?
Just maybe where we can have some communication with legal and
Okay, let's do that. Let's take another 3-minute recess. Sorry, folks, but let's do that.
you able to hear me there, Randy? Okay. Okay, one more time. The city must submit its application for review by an organization designated by the governing body and provide the public an opportunity to comment. What the question in view is what constitutes providing the public an opportunity to comment. If we're not making decisions in this meeting, but we
For the record, we're coming out of recess. This is the Legal Committee of the Roswell City Council on Thursday, May 28th, 2020. We're coming out of recess at 6:23, and we basically have lost our quorum. So let me just say for the record, we were in the middle of the home occupation ordinance, but we were in discussion only, so we'll continue that at our next meeting. The ordinance for the lodger's tax, to update that, can be put off until our next meeting in June, as well as the revision of the solid waste. That ordinance can also be brought back in June. And the DOJ Edward Byrne Justice Assistance Grant asked, I don't know what to say, can I call on you, Parker?
Yes, Madam
Page
Chair, so this.
71.
Yeah, thank you. You know what? Came out of my
I can't
packet.
read what I wrote.
This is a grant application that the city is making. It's a special federal grant that is available for local governments that they can access federal funds relating to public safety. One of the requirements is just that this application be made available for public comment and review, and also that it be reviewed by an organization of the governing body. So the purpose of that was to bring it before legal in order to get that accomplished. We're not asking for any decisions. We're only asking that the committee consider and review it, and that if there's any public comments, that those individuals be given an opportunity to make those comments.
Okay, thank you. So I guess we can ask if there's anyone on GoToMeeting or observing this, anyone in the building that would like to make any comment on the grant application, which is the DOJ Edward Byrne Justice Assistant Grant application.
And I believe staff's telling us that no one is in.
There's no one tuned in and no one in the building apparently that wants to comment. So I think that then is the end of our meeting, and not being able to conduct any more business, we're adjourned at 6:25. Thank you all.